Hey everyone, welcome to today's video and welcome to the Gaming Daddy channel. It's been a few days since I last made a video. I've been taking a break to just celebrate stuff and kind of relax too. It's been a little stressful out here, and so that's basically what's going on. But right now, I've been looking at comments and I'm seeing that there are a lot of new players that are actually commenting on a lot of my videos, and something interesting kind of sparked in my mind and I wanted to talk about it, and that's Specializations and basically a lot of the changes that they've made till now, because Specializations were first in a decent spot, then they went to tank, and then now somehow they have almost somewhat morphed into their own thing, and it's not necessarily a bad thing because of all of the diversity that's been implemented within the game. So I think as a result of a lot of the things that were making changes or being changed, Specializations eventually started to become a lot more personable for you as the player. And what's even interesting is when I'm done with this video, as a PvE player, a PvP player might come around and look and say, come on, that's all nonsense. This is actually how I see Specializations. And that's just the truth, because Specializations now do different things and play specific roles for specific play styles and even the context that you're playing in, if you understand what I mean. So whether PvE or PvP. So I'll talk from a PvE perspective, and if you're a new player, you might benefit from some of this stuff. If you're an OG, your goal is just to basically either affirm some of the things that I say or be like, hey, you're talking nonsense, I prefer this and this is why I prefer that, if you understand what I mean. So we're having this conversation for that. So when Specializations first dropped in the division, there were only three. You only had the Sharpshooter, Survivalist, and Demolitionist. And then as time went on, I think the Gunner specialization was added. Then was it Gunner, Technician, and Firewall, or Gunner, Firewall, and Technician? I can't remember the order. I cannot remember the order, forgive me. But what's happened since then was, from the three classic specializations, we've now seen basically different play styles emerge from them and then shift from them and shift back to them. Now, the reason these shifts have happened is because of different meta shifts. Sharpshooter used to be one of the best for DPS, kind of still is regarding weapon damage, and that's because back then there were some perks that applied to every single weapon class that you had. Believe it or not, the headshot damage that you have here with the Sharpshooter used to apply basically for all weapons. I think it used to apply for all weapons, and even some of the other perks were also, I think it had like the way the perks were all balanced, and you could basically gain those perks for all your weapons. So it was a DPS player's dream. Every DPS player basically took it. Now it's been relegated to rifles and marksman rifles, and even with that, people are still happy to take on that with the rifles, because the rifle builds basically came into play in this meta as well. Rifles used to be a big deal in one meta, then they nerfed the MK17, used to be one of the best. Then now we had the M1A, which was buffed, heavily nerfed, rebuffed, and then slightly nerfed, if you understand what I mean. So now, if you're going to use the Sharpshooter specialization, you're most likely going to be parking your bus here. But that doesn't mean you're relegated to this specialization. There are other specializations that you can use, but that's basically where I've seen the Sharpshooter meta kind of move to. It's now very unique, and you as a sniper or marksman rifle player, or whatever it is you're playing, a rifle player will have to invest here and basically enjoy what needs to be, what this specialization actually does. Now, one thing that I haven't really seen a lot of people use is, the specialization skill, which is basically the Tactician, which is a scout that helps you to mark targets basically behind, enemy barriers. Not a lot of people use this because for some strange reason it feels like a waste of a skill. You could use all kinds of other skills to enhance your damage, to keep you alive, to revive you, and depending on the missions that you're playing, if you've already played them in the past, you're not trying to look for enemy NPCs. So this basically fails here. And I don't think we're going to see much of a recovery unless they kind of go back and start tweaking some of the different, skills that go with the different specializations. And then Survivalist, which many people feel like is a disappointment, is actually my favorite for the solo player. Even though it works in a very weird sense for the group it's very group oriented. Don't get me wrong, but it does have that 10% increased protection from elites that you can enjoy, and then you have all kinds of fun armor kits for your team. You have increased outgoing healing. If you're healing your team, they're going to be getting a bunch more healing from you. There's another perk here that grants everyone in your team. Where is it? There's a perk here. Group members gain, they get 10% bonus damage to targets with status effects on them. So it does have a lot of group stuff. Then why would I tell you that it's my favorite for solo play? That's because of its a special skill, which is basically the Mender. This Mender is actually very nice for the solo player because it just continues to heal you, and it does have the ability for you to be able to modify it and give it some extra perks and be able to kind of use it for your teammates. You can send your Mender to a teammate all the way over there. That's in a group setting, but if it's just you, it continues to heal you, and I really do enjoy what it is. If you want to play a weapon damage build that's based on status effects, the grenade here, the incendiary grenade, helps you for basically gaining that status effect boost that you want, or preventing enemies from rushing you. We've seen where enemy NPCs get really aggressive in some instances, and if you throw this, you can basically disperse them, giving you a small window to run away. So these are some strategic things that I like about the specialization. Now, how the specialization has changed is it used to be very much relegated to the assault rifle player, but they've changed all that stuff now where you can basically run any weapon that you want with all the specializations. The only thing is you're going to have a mod that's also relegated to the different kinds of specializations as well. And then you have Demolitionist. Demolitionist has faded a lot. Yes, if you're using explosive damage, you definitely want this. If you're using specifically the artillery turret, you also want this. It does a lot of damage. This is actually secretly one of my favorite skill builds that I use. And for you to be able to equip the artillery turret, you have to modify and use and equip the specialization for the Demolitionist. So that's one of the big perks from it. When it comes to other perks, you do see some things like burn resistance. Nothing really crazy, but then this group members gain 5% damage targets out of cover. So if you're using a Demolitionist skill, don't feel like you're just using it for yourself. You're also giving your entire team a boost. And then you also have ways to ignore explosions, which is basically something that we have explosive resistance in some of the gear that we have. You would probably be thinking it's something that you would need, you might need or not need, but in a case like this, every minute you can actually ignore an entire explosion. Okay, that's crazy. When armor is reduced to 0, it refills your ammo for your main weapon, which is really nice. Depending on the weapon you're using, you might be using a weapon that you can blind fire from cover in order to increase your skill damage, and that basically helps you. Maybe enemy NPCs have kind of cleaned out your armor, and then you're in cover. That's one strategic play that you can use. And then when it comes to weapons, I think this used to be relegated to LMGs back in the day, and then they brought the gunner specialization. But it does have this small laser pointer that gives you 7% critical hit chance. So for people who are building to gain more more critical hits, they mostly come back to this specialization to use it. So that's one of the, perks that I would say on the weapon side that makes the specialization special. And then on the skill side, and then on the utility and your teammates. Okay. And then we have Technician. Technician by far has surpassed every single expectation of mine since it's been released. At first, when it was released, I didn't really pay too much attention to it, to be very honest. But for the way skills, are right now, I would say that for sure, Technician has changed my mind on a lot of things. Just the way the skill, the specialization works, and all the things that it does with even some of its specialized skills. The Artificer Hive is a very strong hive. One of the best hives that you can basically get your hands on if you're running the specialization. You also have damage that does, that extra damage that you can deal to enemy proxies. That's crazy. 12% extra damage. Like, it's not already enough for you to be able to do some really fun stuff with your skill damage that you already have here. Have that, also added to, your 12% damage to proxies and skills and robotics from enemy NPCs. And then you get an extra skill tier, Very nice, which means for your build, and this is a mistake that I usually make in my builds, is I'm always kind of gunning for 6 skill tiers, but here I have more flexibility, and the obvious choice will be definitely to run 1 weapon damage, attribute for my core attribute here. So actually granting me an extra 15% damage pretty much for free. Very unique specialization. In fact, one of the well thought out specializations, I would say. And then, you have 15% bonus while you're, basically aiming the skill. I think this is throwaway, honestly. I really do. And then party members between 5 meters of your deployed and undisrupted skill are immune to shock and disruption. So this is a very good way for you to be able to get your team kind of protected and covered. It's a tricky way to play, 5 meters between, of your skill. But then think about it. If you really wanted to help your team to boost, some of their skills, your party, you can use the Artificer, Hive. And if they're in cover within 5 meters, they're gaining a lot of perks that you have, that, a lot of perks from you as well. So these are some really cool things with the Technician specialization that I do like. Also, you have the armor kit that applies to all friendly skills and proxies within 10 meters. So if their health is already low, you just basically heal them for free. And then you have Gunner. I've moved away a lot from Gunner. The way I used Gunner back in the day was very simple. I wanted this big, large pouch that gives you, I think, 50 rounds on a big belt-fed LMG, and then I used it for the, the armor on kill. This armor on kill used to be a lot more, but they've finally gone ahead and made some stupid nerf change to it. That's very not attractive to me. And I didn't really like the Riot Foam grenade, because grenades with these enemy NPCs, they're very intuitive, so it was basically a waste. My favorite grenade is still the Survivalist Grenade, because even when you miss, it still sets that place on fire, and enemy NPCs still have to deal with that burn damage by staying away, or maybe even trying to run through it and then getting burned. So this to me always wasted my grenades. Maybe it's just because my aim was bad. And then I didn't necessarily use a lot of the pulse skills. I hardly use pulse. So that's why this specialization did not really, get it in. I don't know. It didn't really fall in place with me. I liked it for a little bit because of that armor on kill, but after a while it went away. But let me tell you something though. Every third reload is 50% faster using the coupler talent. This talent is off the charts, okay? It's one of the best talents in the game. And then you generate 10% of total ammo capacity every 60 seconds, and party members recover 5%. So you're basically giving your party members ammo every time that they're going. Very solid way to go. 10% weapon handling while not moving, and you need to be motionless for about 1 second. 1 second. Did I say seconds? So that's something that I feel like if you want to run solo, if you want to run in a group, whatever it is, you can build around this specialization. But like I said, it no longer really is my fun specialization. And then you have Firewall. Firewall was the shield specialization until Technician came around. So I really was enjoying Firewall, okay? Yeah, like Technician was not there before Firewall. Right, I know, right? But I was really enjoying it because it really gave you like all these really fun stuff that you could use. And you could use the ballistic shield with your flamethrower. But the flamethrower, to me, has already proved to not be one of the best specialization weapons in the game. Even, as terrible as it sounds, the Stinger seems to be doing some really decent work, because with the Stinger, I can actually track an enemy NPC from almost whatever distance that I am. Once I can get them in my aim and my, my tracking, or once I can lock on them, I can hit them with a Stinger. And sometimes an enemy NPC can be in cover, and, you want to take them out. They have a very little health bar, and you just track them with a Stinger and you can take them out. So that's one of the really interesting things that made the Technician just kind of overshadow this. And then with the Technician, we found out that skill tiers also allow for your shield to get stronger, as well as armor tiers. So if you have core attribute armor, your shield can take either or to use to increase the skill tier. So it basically almost rendered the Firewall useless, because the Firewall was relegated to shield. That does not mean, though, that the Firewall is not good. And this is why I said the PvP players may say that's nonsense. Firewall is so annoying because your armor kit recovers 200% armor and 200% health over 10 seconds. Okay, That's one of the reasons a lot of PvP players hated this from the last the last patch, I think. And then running that with efficient became a thing where people were using efficient to be able to gain a lot of these armor kit perks, and they were basically in a position where they almost couldn't die. And then you have 20% burn duration when you apply burn to an enemy NPC. I feel like this should have come with an incendiary grenade without any problems, because all they just did was just give you a cluster grenade, which is basically a frag grenade that has a large area of detonation. So they could have just given us maybe even a better grenade than the Survivalist has, or with a bigger AoE that kind of wants you to use it and puts you in a position where you consider it even in the first place. And so these are some really cool perks that these specializations have. I almost missed one of the really nice ones that I actually like now, and that's this Technician laser pointer. It pulses your enemy targets while you aim your underbarrel at them. I've been trying to modify my build to be able to get what's the name of that? There's a talent that, yeah, there it is. To try to get spotter, which is basically when I just point my weapon at them, they're pulsed and I amplify my damage by 15%. And so that's good for the Technician. But if you're looking to see what specialization you need to use, right now, I will say specializations are in a much better place than they were, I think, post-launch. A little bit post-launch, specializations were they were in a weird place, but now we actually have kind of a meta, which ones kind of take priority depending on how you're building. So I say, all in all, we kind of find ourselves in a good place. But this is not as a result of the developers actually overhauling the specializations. I think it's as a result of them overhauling a lot of the way we play the game, adding more talents, adding build diversity, different kinds of systems there. In some cases, nerfing some things and changing some things. But overall, specializations seem to have somewhat of an identity. Now, shortcomings of a specialization system that we have right now. Specialization weapons are kind of weak. They seem like they could be special items, but they don't really do as much damage as people would love for them to do. In some cases, they were doing some decent damage, but right now they've really changed. And then with Tip of Despair, supposedly a gear set that's supposed to be there for your specialization to work very well, it doesn't seem like Tip of Despair is even enough, in my opinion. I mean, I showed a Tip of Despair build a while ago, and it was fun. I run with it in the open world. Don't get me wrong. I like building off-meta, not so strong builds. But I feel like there are ways that the specializations could have been much more unique and not centered around weapons and specific perks that are, in some cases, easy for them to just tweak as they want. They don't really have too much bearing, and the ones that do have bearings on specific huge metas that are basically game changers that it makes no sense to run out of them. So those ones I'd say are a success. And then the ones that are kind of all over the place, like Firewall, which is like, I wonder why the specialization is even here. I just think those were not well executed in light of the entirety of the game. But let me hear your thoughts in the comment section. I thought I'd bring this discussion up for new players. Let me hear what specialization you prefer running. And if you have any questions, just leave it in the comments as well. I can guess that people will be happy to answer your questions. Anyways, that's it for me. A lot of talking. Hopefully we'll see you in the next video. Peace.